The grand hall of the Lumina Gallery resembled a shimmering, flawless ocean. Crystalline flutes sang out, their melodies providing a delicate counterpoint to the hushed, harmonic murmur of the city's elite. Here, in the very core of Ethelberg, beauty transcended virtue. It constituted the very essence of existence. I remained at the periphery, my chronolume resting securely upon its tripod, its crystalline lens cool against my fingertips. My name is Elian, and I am a resonance profiler. I do not create portraits of mere faces. Instead, I capture the fleeting artistry of the soul as it manifests upon them. In our world, subsequent to the Great Harmonization a century prior, each human being emerges as a masterpiece. The genetic code underwent a complete rewriting, designed to eradicate asymmetry, blemishes, and every conceivable imperfection. We exist as a species of sculpted deities, each face representing a unique yet mathematically flawless canvas. Skin achieves a state of unblemished perfection. Eyes possess a clear and vibrant quality, and bone structure adheres meticulously to the divine golden ratio. Physical beauty exists as a constant, an inherent characteristic. It constitutes a universal language, expressed in a singular word. The commodity in which we deal, the attribute we covet, is resonance. It represents the vibrancy of an expression, the profound depth of emotion capable of flickering across a flawless face. A truly resonant smile possesses the power to captivate an entire room. A glance imbued with authentic sorrow can shatter a heart. To exist in a state of stillness, to possess a face that is beautiful yet devoid of expression, equates to the modern-day equivalent of being a leper. It signifies an empty inner world, the ultimate social failing. My occupation consists of identifying the most resonant individuals and archiving their expressions, thereby preserving the ephemeral masterpieces of human feeling. The evening's event marked the unveiling of the ephemeral prism, a collection of my most recent captures. The city's most influential figures meandered through the gallery, their flawless faces turning to observe my work. They witnessed Minister Eris's expression of profound contemplation, captured precisely at the moment preceding his signing of the intersolar accords. They beheld Lionel's laughter, a cascade of pure, unbridled joy that seemed to imbue the very air with a sparkling quality. These represented the moments for which people lived. While observing the assembled throng and gauging their reactions, my gaze became ensnared by Kale, my colleague and oldest confidant. From across the expanse of the room, he offered me a sharp, flawless smile, raising his glass in a silent salutation. His resonance achieved legendary status, effortless, charismatic. He was inherently suited to this world. Conversely, I consistently perceived myself as a mere spectator, a skilled technician possessing an understanding of the mechanics of light, but incapable of genuinely experiencing its warmth. I recognized that my own face resembled a placid lake, expertly reflecting the emotions of others while betraying none of its intrinsic depths. It was at that precise moment that the incident transpired. A subtle disturbance rippled through the harmonious flow of the crowd. A void began to materialize, a pocket of silent, horrified stillness. The effect resembled that of a vacuum forming within the room, drawing out all sound and warmth. Individuals began to turn away, their flawless features recoiling in a synchronized ballet of disgust. Their eyes, widened with a form of primal shock, all fixated upon a single point. Driven by professional curiosity, I adjusted the focus on my loom's optical sensor, zooming past the flawless shoulders and sculpted jawlines. Subsequently, I saw it. I saw her. She stood near the far wall, partially concealed by a marble column, seemingly attempting to merge with the stone. She was a service attendant, attired in a simple gray tunic. Her hair possessed a commonplace chestnut hue, her eyes a simple, unassuming brown. Her facial structure, from what I could discern, appeared standard, flawless, like that of everyone else, except for the blemish. It manifested as a jagged, silver line that bisected her face diagonally, originating from the edge of her left eyebrow, intersecting the delicate arch of her cheekbone before terminating just short of the corner of her mouth. A scar. The very word resonated as alien within my mind, a fossil from a forgotten language. I had encountered scars within historical archives, in holovids originating from the before times. They represented marks of injury, of disease, of imperfection. They embodied the very elements that the harmonization had been meticulously designed to eliminate in perpetuity. To witness one in the flesh felt akin to beholding a ghost. It represented an obscenity. It was inconceivable. The crowd's reaction manifested as visceral. A woman positioned nearby gagged, pressing a silk handkerchief against her flawless lips. A man physically shielded his child's eyes, whispering angrily to a security warden. The air, formerly pervaded by melodic chatter, now hung heavy with a suffocating, judgmental silence. The girl, the woman, remained frozen, a pariah within a world of polished stone. Her head drooped, her shoulders hunched, as if attempting to shrink away from the hundreds of flawless eyes piercing her. However, I found myself unable to avert my gaze. My training, my entire existence, had revolved around appreciating the beauty of the unblemished canvas. Yet, my eyes remained riveted upon that line of broken skin. It represented a disruption, a violent slash across a flawless painting. It should have evoked revulsion. However, as I observed her, a peculiar emotion began to stir within me, something transcending shock or disgust. The scar represented more than a mere mark. It narrated a story. It spoke an event of force and pain and survival. It constituted a sentence inscribed in a language that my world had deliberately suppressed. While every other face within the room represented a flawless, finished statement, hers posed a question. It possessed a history, a past. She risked a glance upward, and for a fleeting moment, her eyes met the lens of my chronolume. Within that instant, I witnessed something that shook me more profoundly than the scar itself. It was not shame. It was not fear. It represented a flash of raw, defiant fire. A spark of untamed life that rendered every other polished expression within the room as a pale, lifeless imitation. It embodied a resonance of a kind I had never encountered, born not of joy or sorrow, but of endurance. Then, with a swiftness mirroring her appearance, she vanished. Scurrying away through a service door, swallowed by the gallery's hidden corridors, leaving in her wake a torrent of horrified whispers and a singular, indelible image seared into my mind. The flawless individuals surrounding me gradually regrouped, their composure returning, the shocking moment already undergoing a process of smoothing over, of being polished away like a smudge upon a mirror. However, for me, the mirror had sustained a crack. The harmony had been shattered. The world felt altered, thinner. For the first time, the perfection that enveloped me felt fragile, artificial, lifeless. I remained frozen, my hands still resting upon my loom, the echo of that defiant gaze resonating within me. The evening's event, my work, my entire career suddenly felt utterly insignificant. A single, profound question consumed me, drowning out all other considerations. In a world where all individuals possess beauty, what constitutes the true meaning of a blemish? And who was the woman who dared to bear one? The morning following the gallery incident, the city of Ethelberg awoke to its customary, breathtaking perfection. Sunlight, filtered through atmospheric purifiers, cast a golden, unblemished glow upon the crystalline spires that pierced the sky. Below, citizens glided along the maglev pathways, their faces representing a diverse gallery of flawless beauty. Sharp Slavic cheekbones, warm African jawlines, delicate East Asian eye folds, all harmonized to the same underlying code of perfect symmetry. From my sky-level apartment, situated on the 82nd floor, the world presented itself as a beautifully orchestrated dream. However, on this particular day, I perceived the strings. My workspace stood dominated by the chronolume. It functioned less as a camera and more as a quantum state recorder. It did not merely capture light. It captured the subtle energy fields generated by human emotion, the very essence of resonance. The data was subsequently woven into a four-dimensional hologram, a living portrait. My clients were not simply acquiring an image. They were purchasing a preserved moment of emotional authenticity. I replayed the ambient capture from the preceding night, isolating the precise moment at which the disturbance occurred. There she was, a ghost within the machine. The loom, designed to measure and quantify the pleasing frequencies of high resonance, had registered her presence as a jarring, chaotic spike, a burst of static within a symphony. I zoomed in, the image exhibiting slight pixelation, a testament to the distance separating us. The scar resembled a canyon upon the smooth topography of her face. The system had flagged her as a dissonant anomaly. An error. You're brooding. Kale's voice, as smooth as spun silk, interrupted my concentration. He had admitted himself with his key shard, as he frequently did. He was already holding 2 cups of nutrient-paced coffee, extending one toward me. His face, on this day, represented a study in serene concern, a perfectly calibrated expression. "I'm working," I responded, my tone flatter than intended. "You're obsessing," he gently corrected, placing the cup beside me. He glanced at the frozen image displayed on the loom screen. His own flawless brow furrowed in a mask of distaste. The aberration. I find it difficult to believe that security permitted something of that nature to approach so closely. They typically confine such individuals to the undercroft sectors. A processing error, they claim. A charity hire originating from the lower zones. Aberration. That represented the official term. It constituted a clinical, sterile word for something that evoked such a primal, gut-level reaction. The undercroft served as the unofficial designation for the city's foundational levels. The old infrastructure, the maintenance zones, the locations where the gleaming facade of Ethelberg intersected with the dirty reality of its mechanics. It was the area where the less resonant tended to reside, those who struggled to project the vibrant emotional lives that society demanded. They were not outcasts, not officially. They simply settled like sediment at the bottom. It represented more than an error, Kale. Did you observe the expressions on people's faces? It was primal. Naturally, it constitutes a biological imperative, Eli. The harmonization reinforced our instinctual attraction to health, to symmetry. We are hardwired to recoil from deformity. It represents a sign of genetic damage, of weakness. It is an act of mercy that we have eradicated it. He gestured toward the flawless city visible outside the window. This constitutes peace. This marks the termination of judgment, of envy, of the dominion wielded by the genetic lottery. We did not merely eradicate ugliness. We extinguished the anguish it engendered. He articulated the doctrine ingrained in us since our genesis. The before times were portrayed as a barbaric epoch wherein individuals were assessed based on the capriciousness of their visages. Wars were waged, existences shattered, all owing to a misshapen nose or asymmetrical oculars. The harmonization represented our deliverance, a triumph born of rational, compassionate science. To impugn, it was akin to challenging the rectitude of succoring the infirm. However, we have not concluded judgment, I retorted, pivoting from the screen to confront him. We have merely transmuted the criteria. Presently, we evaluate individuals based on the vibrancy of their smile. We dread the stillness more profoundly than our forebears dreaded death. The stillness. It constituted the paramount social malady of our era. To possess a countenance devoid of expression, a visage that remained a serene, exquisite mask, suggested a paucity of inner life, of empathy, of soul. The still were ostracized, relegated to resonance therapists, treated with emotional stimulants. They were regarded as hollow shells, beautiful yet devoid of substance. It embodied my paramount apprehension. I, who could discern and catalog the emotions of others with such clarity, frequently sensed a terrifying void within my own being. I was a connoisseur partaking of a feast I could not savor. Kale's countenance softened into an expression of genuine camaraderie, a visage he was cognizant I found reassuring. That is distinct, Eli. Resonance is a skill. It can be acquired, practiced. It is a meritocracy of the spirit. Appearance was an accident of birth. This is earned. You, of all people, should appreciate that. You are the master of capturing it. He was correct, indubitably. He was invariably correct. However, his logic felt fragile this day. I reverted my gaze to the image of the scarred woman. Her defiance was not rehearsed. It was not a performance of resonance for social aggrandizement. It was raw and genuine, akin to a volcano erupting through a meticulously cultivated garden. What transpires to them? I inquire, my voice subdued. The aberrations. Kale shrugged, imbibing a draught of his coffee. Corrective treatment, if feasible. Gene resequencing. Failing that, they are encouraged to reside in locations where they will not incite public distress within the undercroft. It is more benevolent that way, both for them and for us. Why are you so fixated upon this? It was an unsightly, fleeting moment. Disregard it. Let's deliberate on the prism exhibit. Minister Ayres desires to commission a private resonance portrait of his new daughter. It constitutes a momentous opportunity. I nodded, feigning attention, but my thoughts were elsewhere. Corrective treatment. The phrase instilled a chill down my spine. The notion of eradicating that scar, of smoothing over that history, felt like a desecration, akin to incinerating a book due to a disliking for its cover. Throughout the day, I endeavored to work. I accessed the schematic for the minister's commission, scrutinized candidates for my subsequent project on communal joy, and responded to congratulatory missives concerning the gallery opening. However, my focus remained fractured. Each flawless face I scrutinized appeared incomplete. They were beautiful, undeniably, yet they were mere surfaces. They were a tranquil sea, and I had just witnessed the shocking, glorious breach of a Leviathan. That evening, I executed an action I had not undertaken in years. I accessed the primary historical archives, circumventing the sanitized educational summaries. I searched for pre-harmonization terms: scar, wrinkle, flaw, imperfection. The screen became replete with images that would induce physical illness in a modern citizen. Visages of elderly individuals, their skin a roadmap of their existences, soldiers bearing battle scars, survivors of accidents, children adorned with birthmarks. The archives framed all of it as a gallery of horrors, a testament to the suffering the harmonization had terminated. However, I scrutinized the face of an old woman, her eyes crinkling into 1,000 diminutive lines as she laughed, and I perceived a depth, a character, that rendered Lina's perfect, resonant joy akin to a child's drawing juxtaposed with a masterpiece. I observed a photograph of a father, bearing a faded scar upon his chin, kissing his daughter, and the love within his eyes felt more potent, more genuine than anything I had ever captured with my loom. These faces were not merely canvases for fleeting emotions. They were the emotions themselves. They were the narrative etched into flesh. Our perfection was not a canvas. It was a wall, a beautiful, impenetrable wall. I closed the archives, my heart pounding. Kale's words resonated within my mind. It's kinder that way. Was it kind to barter the narrative of a life for a lifetime of hollow beauty? Was it compassion to obliterate the evidence of our struggles, our survival? I accessed the gallery's security footage anew, cross-referencing employee manifests. Geneva, L, Service Technician, Level 4. Residence, Undercroft Sector, Gamma 7. A name, a location. It constituted a transgression, a violation of privacy, a step into a realm I was supposed to feign did not exist. However, the question from the preceding night had metamorphosed into a burning, obsessive need. I had to comprehend. As I stared at the name upon the screen, a novel, more perilous question commenced to form within my mind, a whisper of heresy against the gospel of our perfect world. What if the flaw I perceived was not a sign of her damage, but of ours? The resolution to seek her out felt akin to stepping off a ledge in my mind. For days, I remained paralyzed by it. My life represented a meticulously constructed edifice of order, safety, and prestige. I was Elian, the resonance profiler, the artist of the soul. My path was unequivocal, my future luminous. To deliberately advance toward an aberration into the forgotten depths of the undercroft constituted an act of self-sabotage. It was madness. And yet, the alternative, to revert to my life of capturing polished, perfect emotions, felt akin to a slow, suffocating demise. The stillness I dreaded in others was commencing to feel like my own reflection. My dreams became haunted. They were no longer the abstract, anxious voids they once were. Now, they were replete with the memory of my grandfather. He had passed when I was a boy, representing one of the last generations to be born just prior to the harmonization being universally implemented. He was old, originating from an era when old was a concept. I recalled his hands more vividly than his face. His hands were not the smooth, ageless appendages of the men in my world. They were landscapes, gnarled, roped with veins, the skin dotted with faint brown spots, and crisscrossed with 100 diminutive, silvery lines. As a child, I had been fascinated by them. I would trace the lines with my small, perfect finger. "What are these, Graham?" I had inquired of him once. He had smiled, a gentle, tired expression upon his still handsome but subtly asymmetrical face. "They're maps, Eli, maps of where I have been. This one," he said, gesturing to a pale scar across his knuckle, "is from a fall I took climbing the old city ruins as a boy. And this one," he touched a patch of rough skin on his palm, "is from a lifetime of holding your grandmother's hand." At that juncture, I had not comprehended. My world contained no ruins, and hands were for gesturing, not for holding so tightly they left a mark. However, now, in the sterile silence of my apartment, that memory served as a beacon. My grandfather's hands were like the woman's face. They possessed a history. They were real. My own hands were smooth, elegant, perfect. They had never known rough work, never borne a scar. They operated the complex machinery of the chronoloom, but they had never truly touched the world. I scrutinized them and sensed a profound sense of poverty. I was rich in perfection, yet destitute in experience. This inner turmoil commenced to bleed into my work. During a profiling session with a young poet celebrated for her melancholic resonance, I found myself unable to connect. She sat before my loom, her flawless face a mask of exquisite, fashionable sadness. Her eyes welled with perfectly formed tears that traced clean paths down her sculpted cheeks. It was technically brilliant, a masterpiece of emotional performance. 1 year prior, I would have been ecstatic, meticulously calibrating my loom to capture every nuance. However, now I saw only the performance. I saw the careful practice, the social conditioning. Her sadness felt curated, an accessory worn to enhance her beauty. It lacked the jagged, untamed quality of the scarred woman's defiance. "Is something amiss, Master Elian?" the poet inquired, her voice a melodious whisper of sorrow. "Is my resonance insufficient?" I forced a smile, the muscles in my face feeling alien and stiff. No, it is perfect. Forgive me, a momentary distraction." I concluded the session on autopilot, my mind 1,000 meters below in a shadowed world of the undercroft. The fear I harbored of the place was slowly being eclipsed by a magnetic pull. The fear was not merely of the unknown or of the social stigma. It was a deeper, more personal terror. I was afraid of what I might find out about myself. I had spent my life as an observer, safely behind a lens. To descend, there was to step onto the stage. What if, when confronted with something so real, I discovered I was truly as hollow as I feared? What if my own stillness was not a mood, but a permanent condition? That night, I made my choice. I donned a simple, dark tunic, a stark contrast to my usual tailored jackets. I left my chronoloom, my professional identity behind. As I stood before the elevator, My reflection in the polished obsidian doors revealed a perfect, handsome stranger with wide, anxious eyes. The face was calm, but the resonance it projected was a chaotic storm of fear and resolve. The journey downward was a descent through the strata of our society. The upper levels were silent, swift, the maglev cars gliding through tubes of light. As we descended, the cars became more crowded, the light dimmer. The melodic chimes announcing each level were replaced by a harsh, functional buzz. The perfect faces around me became less radiant. They were still flawless, but a weariness clung to them. The performance of resonance was a luxury few could afford. In this subterranean realm, the inhabitants were too enervated to feign such artifice. They existed closer to the stillness, their inherent beauty a default state rather than a vibrant manifestation. At length, the conveyance drew to a hissing halt. The display panel illuminated, proclaiming, Sector Gamma 7, Utility and Residence. The doors parted, revealing not a resplendent plaza, but a vast, humid cavern. The air reeked of ozone, recycled water, and an indefinable essence, something both organic and metallic. A dense, tangled network of colossal pipes and conduits formed the ceiling, perpetually weeping condensation that dripped onto the time-worn permacrete floor. The illumination was purely functional, a flat, shadowless yellow that drained all vibrancy from the surroundings. This was the Undercroft. It was not a slum, not in the pre-harmonization interpretation of the term. It was clean and organized, but utterly devoid of the aesthetic refinement of the upper city. It was a place dedicated to utility, not form. The denizens here moved with a sense of purpose that resonated differently. They did not glide, they walked. Their expressions were not performative. They were functional, directed, or simply introspective. I consulted the address on my data pad. Geneva, L. Residence 42C, Habitation Block Delta. My heart hammered against my ribs. Every primal instinct urged me to retreat, to return to my pristine, orderly, beautiful world. I felt like an interloper here, a tourist in a land of the forgotten. However, the image of her face, of that indelible scar, propelled me forward. It served as a compass needle, inexorably drawing me toward an unknown magnetic north. I traversed the cavernous expanse, passing rows of identical habitation units, their doors uniformly flat gray. Here, perfection manifested as monotony, not beauty. I located Block Delta and ascended a flight of metal stairs to the 4th level. The air grew denser, heavier. I paused before door 42C, indistinguishable from the others. I raised my flawless, trembling hand to activate the chime, the polished skin of my knuckles a stark contrast to the dull, utilitarian metal. For a prolonged moment, I hesitated. This was the point of no return. Once I depressed that button, I would cease to be a mere observer. I would become a participant, inextricably entwined in the life of an aberration. What I hoped to unearth? An answer? An explanation? Or did I simply yearn to witness something, anything, that would render my own sterile existence less insubstantial? Taking a deep, shuddering breath, I pressed the chime. The sound was a muted, electronic buzz that seemed to amplify the frantic rhythm of my heart. And I waited, consumed by trepidation regarding the individual or entity I was about to encounter. The seconds following the chime stretched into what felt like an eternity. I detected a faint shuffling sound from within, a testament to life, and my stomach clenched. The door did not glide open with a silent hiss, as those in the upper city did. It unlocked with a heavy, mechanical clunk, and then swung inward on physical hinges, groaning in protest. And there she stood. Her name was Geneva, though my mind instinctively recognized her as the scarred woman. She appeared smaller than I recalled, and absent the dramatic lighting of the gallery, she seemed less like a mythical being and more human. She was clad in the same simple gray tunic, but her hair was pulled back, fully exposing the shocking topography of her face. Up close, The scar was not merely a line. It was a landscape of altered tissue, paler and smoother than the surrounding skin, with a subtle pucker where it met her eyebrow. It stood as a testament to violence, an indelible mark of a moment I could scarcely imagine. Her brown eyes, clear and direct, widened in recognition, then narrowed with suspicion, with a profound, weary defensiveness. Her body tensed, her hand remaining on the edge of the door, poised to slam it shut. "What do you want?" Her voice lacked the melodic, cultivated quality of an upworlder. It was lower, huskier, and imbued with a flat, challenging tone, a voice devoid of any desire to please. I opened my mouth, but the meticulously rehearsed words I had prepared vanished. Confronted with her unvarnished reality, my social graces, my entire upworld persona, seemed like a tawdry disguise. I'm Elian," I stammered, my own voice sounding ridiculously smooth and polished in the stark hallway. "I was at the Lumina Gallery. I'm the resonance profiler. I saw you." A bitter, humorless smile touched her lips, though it failed to reach her eyes. The scar shifted with the expression, a jarring reminder of its presence. "Everyone saw me. It's difficult to overlook a monster at the beauty pageant." "No," I responded, with more force than I intended. I'm not here to judge you." "Aren't you?" she retorted, her gaze sweeping over me, taking in my finely woven tunic, my impeccable posture, the inherent sheen of my existence. "You're one of them, an artist of the flawless. What could you possibly desire from an aberration?" She spat the word as if it were venom. Her hostility formed an impenetrable barrier, but it was a barrier I was determined to breach. "I want to understand," I declared, the words finally materializing, raw and genuine. "That mark on your face, it's the only thing I've encountered in years that felt real. Everything else," I gestured vaguely upward toward the gleaming city I have forsaken, "is a performance. A beautiful, empty performance. I capture it. I catalog it. But I no longer believe in it, I suspect." My confession hung, suspended in the humid air between us, a perilous admission, a heresy. Her expression flickered. The unwavering suspicion persisted, but a sliver of something else, curiosity, perhaps, began to emerge. She scrutinized my face, not with the aesthetic appreciation of an upworlder, but with a penetrating, analytical gaze, as if seeking fissures in my own flawless facade. "Real?" she echoed, the words sounding foreign on her tongue. "You ventured down to the dregs of the city, to the domicile of a genetic anomaly, in search of something real? You upworlders are more broken than I had surmised." Despite the insult, I detected a glimmer of hope. She had not yet slammed the door. "Please," I implored, my voice softening to a near whisper. I'm not who you think I am. I feel hollow, as if the stillness is consuming me. When I saw you, the look in your eyes wasn't still. It was the antithesis of still. I need to comprehend why." She remained silent for an extended period, her eyes tracing the contours of my face. I felt utterly exposed, my flawless features no longer a shield but a testament to my own emptiness. Finally, with a sigh that seemed to carry the cumulative weight of the city above, she retreated. "Get in," she commanded, her voice devoid of inflection, "before you attract attention." The interior of her habitation unit was compact, cramped, and ruthlessly functional. It contained a fold-down cot, a diminutive food preparation station, and a solitary chair. There were no adornments, no holoscreens depicting idyllic vistas, no personal touches, with one exception. On a small shelf above the cot resided a collection of small, peculiar objects. A piece of rusted metal, twisted into a singular shape. A smooth gray stone from a riverbed that had long ceased to exist. A shard of colored glass, its edges smoothed by the passage of time. By any upworld standard, they were worthless, unsightly trinkets, junk. Yet, she had displayed them as if they were treasures. She gestured toward the lone chair, and I seated myself, feeling disproportionately large and awkward in the confined space. She leaned against the opposing wall, her arms crossed, her scarred face a mask of cautious neutrality. "My name is Lyra," she announced, finally granting me a name to supplant the labels my world had affixed to her. "Elian," I repeated, feeling compelled to reintroduce myself on this newfound, more equitable footing. "So, the esteemed resonance profiler is experiencing an existential crisis," she remarked, her tone saturated with biting irony. "He observes a freak and believes he has discovered the meaning of life. It's almost poetic." "It's not like that," I insisted, leaning forward. "That scar, how did it happen?" Lyra's hand instinctively rose to her cheek, her fingers hovering over the mark without making contact. Her expression darkened, the memory clouding her eyes. "An accident. When I was a child, a support beam in one of the obsolete, decommissioned sectors collapsed. It was messy. I conjured the scene in my mind, the chaos, the pain, the terror. In my world, a child would be swiftly transported to a regeneration clinic, where the skin would be seamlessly repaired, the trauma erased by memory dampeners. But Lyra, she had been left to bear the evidence. They didn't repair it?" I inquired, the question sounding naive even to my own ears. She emitted a laugh, a short, sharp, bitter sound. "Repair it? We were a deep-level maintenance crew. My parents were like me. We existed off-grid, unofficially. By the time they managed to transport me to a sanctioned medical unit, the tissue had already healed. The damage was irreversible. To repair, it would have necessitated a complete cellular regression. Too complex, too costly, particularly for a non-essential family exhibiting aberrant markers." She fixed me with a hard stare. "They proposed placing me in a care facility to sequester me so that I would not have to endure the horror of being seen. My parents refused." Her words painted a vivid picture of a world previously unknown to me, a world of shadows, of off-grid communities, of individuals who had slipped through the cracks of our flawless society, a world where a healing wound was not deemed a priority. "You said your parents were like you?" I pressed, sensing a more profound narrative. She hesitated, her gaze shifting to the floor. "The scar resulted from an accident," she stated slowly. "But my existence is not. My genes carry the dissonant marker. It's recessive, signifying that the harmonization in my family lineage is unstable. My parents possessed it. I possess it. It renders us susceptible to change, to damage, to scarring, to reality." She looked up, and her eyes burned with an intensity that caused me to gasp. "You believe your world is perfect, Elian, but it's a cage, a beautiful, gilded cage. You've exchanged the truth of the human body for a sterile ideal. You've bartered the stories inscribed on our skin for a blank page. You look at me and see a flaw. I gaze upon you, upon each and every one of you, and what I perceive are apparitions. Exquisite, refined apparitions, cowering at the merest breath of wind." Her pronouncements struck me with the force of a tangible blow, leaving me as though facing a blank page. Apparitions. She perceived my realm, the culmination of my life's endeavors, with a lucidity that was simultaneously petrifying and invigorating. She was not merely a casualty of fate. Rather, she was a custodian of an alternative philosophy, a divergent mode of existence. I rose to my feet, compelled by an inexplicable impulse, and gravitated toward the shelf adorned with curios. I directed my finger toward a fragment of corroded metal. "What is this object?" "A shard of the beam that succumbed," she articulated softly. My digits trembled as I extended my reach and made contact with it. Its texture was coarse, its temperature frigid, and its essence authentic. It constituted a segment of her narrative, a concrete verity within a sphere of illusion. "There exist others like us," she disclosed, her tone descending further, acquiring a conspiratorial cadence. "Not in abundance, yet we persist. Individuals who bear the dissonance. Those who espouse that perfection is a form of confinement. We dwell below, in the locales you have relegated to oblivion, and we recollect." She advanced a pace closer, her countenance, marked by its scars, positioned mere inches from my own. I discerned the delicate texture of her epidermis, the subtle manner in which the cicatricial tissue exerted a gentle pull upon her lip. It possessed no semblance of ugliness. Rather, it was profound. It stood as a landmark. "You aspire to witness something genuine, profiler," she murmured, her respiration imparting warmth upon my cheek. "You yearn to behold what your world has endeavored to expunge? Then, cease regarding me as a museum artifact and commence listening." Her challenge hung suspended in the atmosphere, a portal to a domain of inconceivable arcana. Did I possess the requisite fortitude to traverse it, to genuinely perceive what lay concealed within the bedrock of our flawless society? My trial had only just commenced, and I comprehended, with a certainty that sent shivers down my spine, that the path ahead would necessitate more than mere valor. It would demand that I dismantle the very prism through which I perceive the world. Lyra's gauntlet constituted a pivotal turning point, akin to a key engaging within a lock whose existence had eluded my awareness. In the ensuing days, she metamorphosed into my reluctant mentor, ushering me into the clandestine heart of the Undercroft. Our rendezvous were surreptitious, conducted within the resonating viscera of the city. We convened at echoing sewer confluences, where the reverberation of recycled water eclipsed all discourse for those lacking audio dampeners. We assembled within deserted geothermal vents, the atmosphere saturated with the planet's latent heat. These were the interstitial zones, the arteries and intestines of Ethelberg, imperceptible and disregarded by the pristine world above. She did not bestow her trust upon me with ease. My unblemished visage, my delicate hands, my upworld inflection, they constituted the uniform of the adversary. I was a mere tourist amidst her tribulations. Yet, my thirst for comprehension was inexorable, a hunger of a kind she had never before encountered. I harbored no pity for her, nor did I seek to rectify her. I was in fact envious. I envied her scar. I envied the authenticity it embodied. This peculiar, heretical envy served as my passport into her realm. One evening, she guided me deeper than ever previously through a labyrinth of maintenance conduits to a formidable, pressurized portal absent from any city schematic within my recollection. She positioned her palm upon a scanner that emanated not the cool azure of official technology, but rather a warm, amber radiance. "It registers biosignatures," she elucidated, her voice subdued. "Not merely fingerprints, but also the dissonant marker within our blood, the instability. It serves to bar entry to the perfects." The portal emitted a hissing sound as it swung open, revealing not merely another grimy conduit, but a space that left me breathless. It was a sprawling, cavernous reservoir, long since decommissioned, yet it had undergone a transformation. Strands of warm, low-wattage illuminations were suspended between the colossal pillars, casting a gentle, golden aura. The atmosphere was imbued with the aroma of soil and burgeoning vegetation. Within immense, repurposed containers, individuals were cultivating gardens, nurturing genuine, imperfect vegetables, a misshapen potato, a contorted carrot. The peals of children's laughter reverberated throughout the vast expanse, a sound so raw and uninhibited that it bordered on the startling. And the inhabitants, they constituted a gallery of the improbable. An elderly gentleman reclined upon a crate, meticulously carving a piece of wood. His countenance was a magnificent, deeply etched cartography of a century of existence, his eyes scintillating with a wisdom I had never before witnessed. A woman bearing a prominent, dark birthmark across her neck was instructing a cohort of children, her smile unself-conscious and radiant. I espied a youthful man with a slight limp ambling hand in hand with a girl whose ears possessed a charming asymmetry. It was a village of imperfections, a sanctuary of flaws, and it was the most breathtaking place I had ever beheld. "Welcome to the Echo," Lyra articulated softly, scrutinizing my countenance. "It is the appellation we have adopted for ourselves, the echo of that which has been forfeited. I was rendered speechless. I traversed the settlement as a somnambulist. None recoiled from my presence, yet they observed me with a cautious curiosity. My perfection demarcated me as an outsider more profoundly than Lyra Scar had distinguished her within the gallery. Here, I was the aberration, an elderly gentleman, his visage etched with kindness and wrinkles, his nose exhibiting a distinctive curvature, approached us. This was Silas, the community's de facto elder. Lyra introduced me with a succinct, "He aspires to learn." Silas regarded me, his gaze piercing. "A profiler," he stated, his voice raspy with age. "You capture the surface, whereas here, we venerate the depths. What do you perceive here, Upworlder?" I faltered, struggling to articulate my thoughts. "I perceive life, uncurated life." Silas nodded deliberately. The harmonization was marketed as a boon, a panacea for the afflictions of the flesh, yet it proved to be a poison for the soul. In eradicating the potential for a scar, one eradicates the potential for heroic survival. In expunging the lines of age, one expunges the evidence of wisdom. In smoothing away every imperfection, one smooths away the very essence of identity. He escorted me to a secluded, tranquil corner of the cistern, where a simple terminal glowed. The dissonance movement did not originate as a rebellion, he elucidated, his gnarled digits tapping at the screen. It commenced as a regret, a secret harbored by the very architect of your flawless world. He displayed an image, a black and white photograph from the before times. It depicted a handsome, brilliant-appearing man with intense eyes, Dr. Eris Thorne, the progenitor of the harmonization. Beside him stood a woman with a warm, intelligent countenance, adorned with a diminutive, crescent-shaped scar above her lip. Thorne's wife, Ilara, Silas identified. She perished in an accident a year prior to the completion of the harmonization. That scar, he cherished that scar. It stemmed from a childhood tumble, and he professed that it was the singular element of her visage that was uniquely hers, a minute imperfection that rendered her perfect beauty accessible, human. Subsequent to her passing, he became consumed with eliminating the kind of arbitrary cruelty that had claimed her. He sought to conquer pain, injury, and death, and thus he conceived the harmonization. My mind reeled. The very foundation of our entire society was predicated upon a man's heartbreak. Yet, he overreached, Silas continued. In his bereavement, he engendered a world of flawless dolls, a world wherein his Ilara, with her exquisite, singular imperfection, could never subsist. He apprehended his error belatedly. The project had grown too vast, the public's yearning for perfection too overwhelming. Ergo, he executed the solitary recourse available to him. He constructed a backdoor. He inputted another command, and a sequence of intricate genetic code populated the screen. "The dissonant marker," Silas murmured, his voice imbued with reverence. Thorne furtively embedded it within the harmonization code, a recessive trait, a genetic apparition. It lies dormant within millions of you Upworlders. Yet within certain families, through generations of intermingling, it becomes activated. It does not render us unsightly. Rather, it merely renders the harmonization's grip upon our biology unstable. It permits us to be marked anew by life. It permits us to be human. My grandparents were among the first Thorne clandestinely contacted, followed by my parents, and now myself. We are the legacy of his regret. The revelation was staggering, a seismic upheaval that reconfigured my comprehensive understanding of reality. This was not merely a community of genetic anomalies. Rather, they constituted a deliberate legacy, a clandestine, living testament to the failure of perfection. But there is more, Lyra declared, her voice grim. She assumed control of the terminal, displaying medical charts, population statistics, all extracted from data they had surreptitiously siphoned from the city's networks for decades. The harmonization exacted a cost Thorne never anticipated, a gradual, insidious price. Observe, the data was irrefutable. Birth rates within the upper city had been undergoing a steady, almost imperceptible decline for 50 years. Instances of profound, intractable stillness were on the rise, particularly amongst the youngest generations. And then there was the most chilling chart, a measurement of telomere degradation. The very termini of the chromosomes, which dictate aging and cellular regeneration, were exhibiting indications of brittleness. "Your perfection is sterile," Lyra asserted, her voice frigid with a dreadful certainty. "The code is excessively flawless. It lacks the capacity to accommodate variance, to adapt. It resembles a melody composed of a solitary note. Initially, it is pure, yet ultimately, it devolves into mere silence. We, the dissonant, with our imperfections and our chaotic genetics, our birth rates are stable, our children are vibrant. We succumb to illness, we sustain injuries, we age, but we endure. Your people," she gestured skyward, "are metamorphosing into exquisite statues within a museum that is gradually, silently, drawing its doors shut forever." I stumbled backward, my hand pressed against my chest, my heart pounding. The verity was so much grander, so much more horrifying than I could have ever conceived. Our beauty was not merely a cage, but a tomb, a glorious, gleaming, flawless tomb. We were a moribund race, admiring our own reflections as we faded into oblivion. And these individuals, the echo, the aberrations my world scorned and concealed, they were not the past, but rather the sole conceivable future. As this monumental truth settled upon me, a novel alert flashed upon the terminal screen, a security feed originating from the tunnel entrance. My blood turned to ice. Projected on the screen was a familiar visage, his face an impassive display of concerned resolve, his impeccable, charismatic resonance broadcasting even through the grainy camera feed. It was Kale. He had pursued me. Furthermore, he was commanding a squadron of Aegis wardens, their meticulously polished armor gleaming in the tunnel's subdued illumination. He had discovered their sanctuary. He had unearthed the secret. Lyra diverted her gaze from the screen to my countenance, her own features a tableau of burgeoning horror and ultimate betrayal. "You," she breathed, the solitary word and accusation that irrevocably shattered my spirit. "You conducted them here." The pronouncement "you" reverberated within the expansive cistern, a ricocheting projectile of incrimination. For a heart-stopping moment, the entire community became motionless. The children ceased their merriment. The elderly gentleman, Silas, lifted his gaze from his terminal, his deeply lined face a mask of profound, sorrowful comprehension. The mirth and vitality that had permeated the space mere moments prior were extinguished, supplanted by a silence more terrifying than any I had previously encountered. All eyes converged upon me, the consummate, refined Trojan horse who had ushered devastation to their portals. "No," I managed to choke out, desperation seizing my throat. I wouldn't. However, Lyra remained unheeding. Her face, the face I had grown to perceive as an emblem of veracity, was now distorted with a torment and fury that overshadowed the defiance I had initially admired. It was the visage of an individual who had dared to entrust and had been brutally penalized for it. "They pursued you," she hissed, her voice a low, perilous snarl. "We granted you entry, and you guided the wolves to our threshold." Panic ignited within my chest, a scorching, suffocating sensation. On the security monitor, Kale and the Aegis wardens were engaged in breaching the door, their plasma torches projecting stark, animated shadows within the tunnel. They would penetrate within minutes. I was unaware. I pleaded, pivoting toward Silas. "You must believe me. He's a friend of mine. He must have been apprehensive. He lacks understanding." Silas positioned a soothing, gnarled hand upon Lyra's arm, albeit his eyes remained transfixed upon me, his expression inscrutable. "Comprehension is a luxury we shall not possess for long, Elian. Irrespective of whether you conducted them here through malice or imprudence, the outcome remains identical. They have arrived." His tone was devoid of anger, yet conveyed the gravity of an imminent tragedy. Pandemonium ensued. Individuals were scrambling, seizing their progeny, amassing what meager, precious possessions they possessed. The serene sanctuary had metamorphosed into a trap. Alternative egresses existed, concealed, narrow passages known solely to them. However, they necessitated time. Time I had deprived them of. I experienced a debilitating, futile paralysis. My universe, my confidant, my own naive quest for significance, was poised to obliterate the sole genuine entity I had ever discovered. Lyra, galvanized by the exigency, was issuing commands, her voice piercing and distinct, directing individuals toward an escape route concealed behind a cascade of recycled water. She was a leader, forged within the crucible of survival. I was merely a spectator, a catalyst for catastrophe. Abruptly, a segment of the primary door glowed cherry red and subsequently ruptured inward with a deafening shriek of tortured metal. A squadron of Aegis wardens, adorned in white and chrome armor, their faces obscured behind impassive, reflective helmets, surged into the cistern. They advanced with a chilling, synchronized efficiency, dispersing, their pulse rifles held at the ready. They were the embodiment of sterile, unfeeling order. Subsequently, Kale stepped through the breach. He was not wearing a helmet. His impeccable, handsome face was completely visible, his expression a confluence of shock, disgust, and a warped semblance of righteousness. He absorbed the scene, the grime, the imperfect implements, the flawed, terrified visages of the echo, and his features hardened. He perceived not a community, but an infection, a disease that had taken root within the foundations of his flawless world. His eyes surveyed the chaos and located me. Relief washed across his face, immediately succeeded by stern determination. Elian praised the harmonizers. I was exceedingly concerned. Distance yourself from them. I am here to escort you home. Kale, no, I exclaimed, interposing myself between him and the cowering families. You do not comprehend what this place signifies. You cannot perpetrate this. I comprehend perfectly, he declared, his voice resonating with the conviction of a zealot. He advanced a step, his gaze settling upon Lyra, who stood defiantly near the waterfall, endeavoring to shield a cluster of children. His eyes narrowed upon her scar, and an expression of profound revulsion traversed his countenance. I comprehend that you have been corrupted by this filth, this genetic degeneracy. I pursued you to safeguard you, Eli, and now I perceive I must safeguard us all. He elevated a hand, and the wardens leveled their rifles. They did not discharge lethal rounds. The rifles emitted a low hum, charging for concussive, paralyzing discharge. They are not a disease. I shrieked, my voice raw. They are the cure. Our perfection, Kale, it is eradicating us. It is a fallacy. Kale merely shook his head, a countenance of profound pity etched upon his features. It was the expression one bestows upon a cherished friend who has succumbed to madness. The stillness has overtaken you, Eli. You are disoriented. Do not fret. We possess therapies. We can rectify this. We can restore you to wholeness. He surmised he was rescuing me. This constituted the ultimate betrayal, more agonizing than any malevolence. It was a betrayal originating from affection, from a camaraderie so steeped in the ideology of our universe that it was incapable of discerning the truth. He would annihilate this entire community, expunge this vital culture, all to save me from a reality he was incapable of comprehending. Lyra observed the wardens taking aim at the final cohort of individuals scrambling for the exit. Without a second's hesitation, she sprinted from the relative sanctuary of the waterfall, drawing attention to herself, endeavoring to procure them a few additional seconds. Here, she yelled, her voice a defiant cry. Observe me. Observe the monster. Kale's eyes fixated upon her. Detain the primary aberration, he commanded, his voice frigid as ice. She is the source of the contagion. Two wardens